Let's talk about JavaScript arrays. Take a look at this piece of code. Do you consider this to be an array? Pause the video right now and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's ask ourselves this question. What is an array? By definition, an array is a contiguous space in memory. Contiguous meaning unbreaking. So an unbroken piece of memory that contains a certain amount of bytes. As you all know, everything in a computer is represented by ones and zeros. So all this array really contains is just ones and zeros. But to make any sense of this binary information, we need to tell the compiler how to divide up the array. So if we tell the compiler to divide up the array into 32-bit sections, it's going to look at these 4 bytes of data and see it as a single 32-bit number. So an array is basically a big long version of this, where we have multiple elements of a single type. In a language like C, we can define an array like this. It simply means I want 5 integers in a contiguous space for me to use. Now we can walk through that space using something like indexes. If we tell the program to access A0, what we're really telling it to do is, hey, go to the memory address of A and add in the offset of 0 by how big the type is. Because if my type is 32 bits long, index 1 has to be 4 bytes into the memory space, and index 2 has to be 8 bytes into the memory space. And that's what an array actually is. It's a simple contiguous memory space. Now, if you've written any JavaScript, then you know the JavaScript arrays are way more complicated. There are a lot of abstraction layers that make things easier for the end user. But if we want to implement something similar in Node, we can create what's known as an array buffer. If we jump into Node, we can create an array buffer like this. Let's give it a length of 8. If we print it out, we can see that it's just a series of zeros. There's nothing in it. But we have this empty piece of memory that we can use a couple of different ways. If we create an array of unsigned 8-bit integers, that means a number between 0 and 255, and set A as their location, we can now assign a value to this array. Let's assign 45 as the first element of the array. Now if we print it out, we can see that the memory actually changed. Let's assign a value to the third element of this array. That means index number 2. Let's assign 50 as the value. We can again notice that the data inside the memory actually changed. Let's keep the second value and change the third one, which was expected. Now let's create another array, but this time using 16-bit unsigned integers instead of 8 bits. Again using A as their location. If we print out A, we can see that nothing has changed. The value previously inserted into the array is still there in the memory. Now let's assign a value to the third element of this new array. Now if we print out A, we can see that something interesting happened. Instead of changing the third element as we expected, it changed the fifth one. So what's happening here? Now what we're doing here is we're taking a piece of memory and interpreting it differently. At first, we told the computer to look at it as 8-bit units, and we can walk the memory space as 8-bit units. But then we changed that and asked the computer to look at it as 16-bit units, and now we can walk the memory space as 16-bit units. And that is why it changed the fifth element instead of the third as we asked. It is basically looking at this piece of memory as 16-bit units, so each piece is 16-bit wide. Fundamentally, that's what an array is. It's a contiguous space of memory that we can interpret in different ways and walk accordingly. Although JavaScript handles things differently, it doesn't change the inherent definition of an array. Now that you've made it this far, what do you think? Is this an array? Let me know in the comments. If you like my content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.